Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Concerned Citizens Network of Alexandria's Generation Z Community Chat. We're so excited to have everyone here. Where our conversation is focused on civic responsibility and voting. We're 40 days into the election. So we really want people to leave here informed and inspired and just ready to vote.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming and participating with us today, especially we talk about young people.
So next we're going to have some remarks from City Councilman John Chapman.
And thank you for all of you for being here. As one can tell from this time period, Zoom calls are the norm. Whether we're doing one-on-one meetings, whether we're doing community chats, whether we're exchanging information, whether we're trying to keep each other upbeat, or like tonight, whether we're talking about what's needed for the future. By the folks that are going to be panelists speaking to you today, they're going to share their perspectives and they're challenge us and others to continue to give back to in order to make a difference. As we continue to chat with and about our youngest generations, I'm always reminded by the fact, even though they would not have been considered Generation Z, some of the youngest of our nation's leaders have always been young or very close to young, really pushing the edge of the envelope and what's expected out of the community. Neither Martin Luther King nor Malcolm X lived past their 39th birthday. And so the effect that these two gentlemen had in their early years is so significant. There's a saying that floats around that says, "You are the leader," or "You are the ones we've been waiting for." And I think that is the appropriate way we need to approach our young people. We need to expect and empower our young people to be leaders, to make a difference, and show them and put in their heart that regardless of what they do and how they do it, they can make an impact. And so I look forward to hearing from our panelists today. For those who are following CCNA and folks that are watching this, whether you're watching it live or as a recording, time is now for you to get involved with CCNA. They have been working diligently through this pandemic to try to find avenues for them to be active with our young people. One of the things that I think, Colonel Page, this is probably the second, maybe the third Zoom conference panel discussion that I've been a part of with CCNA. And so more and more opportunities like this, CCNA is making for our community, as well as putting together the anti-racist toolkit. I think we saw a little blurb about that in the video. And working with our young people to help them understand civics. Civic engagement and education is so important nowadays, especially with the upcoming election, to get them involved and not only knowing the candidates, but the issues that are important to us.
But before we get into our questions and our discussion, I would like our panelists just to give a brief 1-minute introduction, just so we can get to know them a little bit better.
Hi, thank you so much for having me as a panelist. I'm deeply honored to have been asked to participate in this CC community chat. So I currently coordinate the city's Children and Youth Master Plan. That plan is a guide for how people who care about children and youth in our community, as well as the youth themselves, can come together to solve problems and to create the conditions for young people to thrive in Alexandria.
Next, let's have Chloe Edwards.
Hi everyone, I'm Chloe Edwards. Today I'm representing Voices for Virginia's Children. I lead our outreach and engagement on the Campaign for a Trauma-Informed Virginia particularly. But just last month, I launched Virginia's first ever Racial Truth and Reconciliation Week, which is now Racial Truth and Reconciliation Virginia, where the mission is to empower marginalized communities to promote truth, racial healing, and justice.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you again, Kyron, Colonel, and CN, today for having me. Make it nice and brief. I'm originally from Alexandria, Virginia. Right now, I currently reside in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I work with PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the largest accounting firms. I'm a management consultant focusing on the banking side. I'm also one of our lead pillars for Charlotte community, where I partner with one of their largest nonprofits, YBLA, to help African Americans understand the importance of the professionalism, brand building, and networking. And I'm just glad to be here to be able to come back to a community where I started and see some familiar faces and have a good conversation. Thank you.
Marquise Skinner. I am active duty Air Force, currently stationed at Quantico down here in Virginia. I work as a manager for the Air Force and Space Force's investigative service, criminal investigative service. I oversee project management and cybersecurity.
But what does civic responsibility and or engagement mean to you?
Well, let me go first. I take it. What civic responsibility means to me is, being that example and changing my community. I think what we overlook is that we are the change and we are the example that we want to see. A lot of people watch us even at times when we don't realize it. So my responsibility and my duty is to always reach back and what Mr. Jackson said earlier, giving back to those that come after us.
I would add to that, for me, it's about being engaged and keeping democracy alive. That democracy doesn't mean just voting, but it means solving community problems.
Outreach is informing, showing up, giving people the solutions you think they need, appearing to be the expert. But I really think the community is the expert in what they need, and members impacted by policies should be informing policies. What it means today in today's time isn't just improving our systems, it means changing the systems that perpetuate racism and oppression. And so when we think of engagement, we need to make sure that the community is at the front and center, giving power to the people.
I agree with the other panel members. Like I said, being involved in the community, trying to, make things better, adjusting with the times, being engaged, knowing what's going on in your environment, your situation, your neighbors, just trying to do better.
For the panelists here in CCNA, ACPS is our strongest partner. So when we're talking about the issues of racial equity and health and those kind of things, what would be your message to Dr. Hutchinson and his staff? And I'll go away from you, Chloe. I'll go to Kevin, who's a TC grad.
That's a good question. Well, what I would say, some advice would just look at the data. I know that ACPS has done a lot of research, and the research has been there for a while. They have communicated. I know I was on a touch point a few weeks ago with Dr. Hutchinson. Let's look at the data, right? Numbers don't lie. Let's see how we can improve the data, right? Let's try to really make change.
I think that's something that we need to really instill through civics now with the youth so that they learn more about how involved they can be. I don't think young people, as you said, we don't remember much from our classes in civics. I know I don't, but I do know that there's a lot that we can do to make sure that kids understand. And as I watch what's going on with the country now, particularly with elections and how government works and all of that, I really see how important it is for our kids particularly to learn about that at a young age. So, just kind of throwing that out. And in fact, I was thinking today, wouldn't it be nice to have a virtual grandmother's kitchen table where you could bring youth on Zoom? I was thinking of that today, where you could actually call it grandma's table or something like that, where you're bringing kids to do something like we're doing right now, but to have those conversations with some of us of the younger generation.
I love that idea because I think now the grandmothers are becoming more younger. I know my mom is a 48-year-old grandma, so they get that old school loving, and I need some of that, So I'm all for that one.
Yeah.
this isn't really about my experience in civics classes, of which the only thing I remember is a man yelling profanities at us, and every time he would, his hair would like fly back and forth. That's it. That's all I remember from my U.S. government class. But what I will say is an opportunity for any of you to actually engage young people in civics classes. You can do that right now, and that's how we were able to engage 1,800 youth in the planning of the Youth Master Plan this year.
And I want to say that this conversation has been really good. Of course, our founding fathers and those who weren't present, but they were leaders in this country, like Dr. King, his work is not yet done. And it requires all of us to be a citizen to one another. And to be a citizen, you have to do your part. And on a personal level, as someone who came to this country as a refugee, I've served this country for 9 years in the U.S. Army as an officer. And that's part of me contributing to what the people that came before me have done.
Chloe was saying in the beginning with her opening remarks, and she was quoting the Constitution and who created the Constitution and how people of color really had no input in it. And her programs want to involve the people in the problem solving. So how does she expect to educate the people? Because education, of course, is the key to everything. How will her organizations reach out to educate the people in order to have them understand that they do need to be a part of this, because in the beginning you weren't, so now is your opportunity?
So Racial Truth and Reconciliation Virginia was created by the community. When Black Lives Matter, the momentum around that resurfaced, and when COVID-19, we've seen that disproportionate impact, I decided to do a temperature check as a Black woman and leader in the community with other trauma-informed community network leaders of color particularly. And oftentimes these issues are left to people of color to solve their own oppression that was created by whiteness. It wasn't created by people of color, but the solution often lies with us. And so I wanted the community networks to have the autonomy in coming up with what they wanted to do to intervene into today's times. But I also wanted to extend the opportunity for ally support. And so that we reached out to the State Trauma-Informed Community Network. We looped in networks like RAISE. There's 26 networks in Virginia, actually. And so while the community leaders of color decided on the goals and the mission of Racial Truth, we also had the support of the other state trauma-informed community networks to make it successful. And it's grown past that as well, because we recognize that some of these networks have a lot of struggles with diversity and inclusion within those networks. And so we can't completely rely on those networks because the diversity of perspectives are not always there. And through the programs of RTR, there's many that we will keep. But one of the most successful ones was the community chats, which are educational and highlighted issues like maternal infant health mortality, food insecurity, community responses to Black Lives Matter and COVID-19. Concerned Citizens Networks were also involved in that and talking about redefining new normal and giving the community anti-racist tips.
I see Mrs. Wood is on the line. Kanita, are you there from ACPS?
Thank you so much. I just got off of a webinar myself, so just want to say thank you all for having this conversation. This is exactly what we need. We just did our first read-in with Doug Reed on the book, Building the Federal Schoolhouse. And if you're not familiar, it is about the institutional racism of our national school systems, and the backdrop is Alexandria City. So our history is very deep-rooted into that book. And so it's just great to go from that discussion to come in to this discussion with city members and former TC graduates, to be able to hear some of the great things that are happening and pushing this work forward, and having this conversation within our community is important. If we don't understand our past, we are doomed to repeat it. And so we are at a place in 2020 where we have to face these things head on, name it, call it out, and deal with it and move forward. So I appreciate you all. Thank you. I'm so proud.
Yesterday, the Commonwealth Attorney launched the Community Advisory Board. That's Brian Porter. There's 20 members on the board, and our job is to look at racial equity across the city, how it intersects with education, health, all those things. There are 20 people on the board, and we meet about once a quarter. Brian couldn't be with us, but he did send a note, and he said, Colonel Page, first tell everybody thank you for doing what you do, but remember to get out and vote.
I'm just impressed with the quality of the young leaders that are part of the symposium. Keep up the good work.
I'll have to echo much as what has been said by the others in terms of having the youth actively engaged and making decisions to help us move forward.
So to Kevin and Marquise and Chloe and to Chelsea, on behalf of CCNA and Gwen Fuller's on the line, she will echo this. We can't thank you enough for spending some time with us. This is not the last time. It's not the last time. But I really want to thank you for two things. One, for spending some time with us, but I think more importantly, for being the young people that you are. We need you. We need your vote. We need your voice. And this is your choice. So I'm looking at my good friend, Gwen Fuller. You want to share a few words, Gwen?
I'd just like to say thank you so much to the young people for participating. And certainly you have brought us a wealth of things to think about, and to hear the things that you're already involved in trying to put forth. It's wonderful. And we've got a lot to do, as Ms. Allen said, and as we older people are all saying. But I do too think we're in good hands if this is an example of what we have out there working for us.
Yes, sir. I'm encouraged.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and this was very insightful, and I'm very, very moved by what everyone is doing and going in a positive direction, and this is great stuff.
So thank you to all our panelists and to everybody who joined us tonight. It was a great conversation. I'm definitely inspired just to make a change, to be more active within my community. And we hope that everybody else leaves inspired and ready to be active and engaged, and to be civically responsible, and to get out there and vote past November 3rd, vote in all the elections that there are. So yeah, if there are any words from our panelists of goodbye or any advice or anything, you guys can say those now as well.
Thank you all for having me. This was a pleasure. I'm glad I could join with such great people. I'm even more inspired. I just get challenged just to continue to listen. What I've learned as being a consultant is don't never reinvent the wheel. So the reason why I say listen, because you may find something that somebody else is doing, you take off the workload off your back, or doing something that's interesting in their communities. I think we're located in Houston, Charlotte, across the U.S. So let's continue to listen to each other, inspire each other, and hold each other accountable. And look forward to speaking to everyone again. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for inviting me, having me come out here and kind of speak to everyone, listen to everyone. It's great seeing my peers, very successful people that are definitely involved in the community, that want to do better. And those of you guys who are obviously came before us and are still continuing to do this stuff, absolutely fantastic. I love to see it. Look forward to keep working with you guys in the future, definitely.
I just want to leave everyone with that message that everyone has a role to play, whether it's at the individual, community, or systemic level. But I'm confident that everyone on this call will find their role and fight towards this good trouble towards social justice.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, my parting words are build relationships with young people and practice self-care so you don't burn out.
Thank you everyone for joining us. We hope you all have a great night. And yeah, do some self-care for yourself. Tomorrow's Friday, so